Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah. That's giving all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God, whose name is Yahweh Ba'ashem, meaning coming in the name of, and Yahweh Shah, who the world called Jesus Christ. Gusano, I'm from the dirt, and I remember where I'm from. Today, I want to go over the book of Daniel, chapter 8, the vision of the ram and the goat. Without further ado, let's get into it, family. The book of Daniel, chapter 8, the vision of the ram and the goat. Daniel's vision of a ram and a goat. Daniel chapter 8, verses 1 through 27 in the NLT. During the third year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, saw another vision, following the one that had already appeared to me. In this vision, I was at the fortress of Susa, in the province of Elam, standing beside the Ulai River. Belshazzar is king of Babylon in Daniel 7 and 1. In his first year ruling, and in Daniel 8 and 1, it is his third year ruling. Daniel 5, this king dies, and the power is given to the Medes. Verse 3, Daniel 8 and verse 3. As I looked up, I saw a ram with two long horns standing beside the river. One of the horns was longer than the other, even though it had grown later than the other one. The Persians were more powerful than the Medes. The Persians, led by Cyrus the Great, conquered the Median Empire 550 BCE, effectively absorbing them into the newly established Achaemenid Empire. The Medes, while initially a significant power in the region, were ultimately overtaken by the expanding Persian Empire. The ram is the Medo-Persian Empire. The horn that came up later is the Persian Empire that conquered the Median Empire. The ram butted everything out of his way to the west, to the north, and to the south, and no one could stand against him or help his victims. He did as he pleased and became very great. The Medes were taken over by the expanding Persian Empire. While I was watching, suddenly a male goat appeared from the west, crossing the land so swiftly that he didn't even touch the ground. This goat, which had one very large horn between its eyes, headed toward the two-horned ram that I had seen standing beside the river, rushing at him in a rage. The goat charged furiously at the ram and struck him, breaking off both his horns. Now the ram was helpless, and the goat knocked him down and trampled him. No one could rescue the ram from the goat's power. The goat is the Greek Empire. The horn is Alexander the Great. Macedonia is west of the Medo-Persian Empire. Right? And it says that this male goat appeared from the west. Macedonia, top left. And look at the Medo-Persia to the right. So it came from the left. Alexander came from the left. First Maccabees 1 and 1. And it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shedem, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece, crossing the land so swiftly. Alexander the Great defeated Darius III of Persia within the first few years of his reign. In fact, within His first 3 years, Alexander decisively defeated Darius at the Battle of Issus in 333 BCE, and then again at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE, which effectively ended the Achaemenid Persian Empire. From the west, after defeating Darius and securing the Persian Empire, Alexander continued his eastward conquest, eventually reaching as far as India. Now look, top left corner, Macedonia. This is Alexander the Great. He's coming all the way, the Media Persian Empire, all the way to India. Right? The river, the Battle of Gaugamela, also called the Battle of Arbela, took place in 331 BC between the forces of the army of Macedon under Alexander the Great and the Persian army under King Darius III. It was the second and final battle between the two kings and is considered to be the final blow of the Achaemenid Empire, resulting in the complete conquest by Alexander. The fighting took place in Gaugamela, a village on the banks of the river Bumodus, north of Arbela, modern-day Erbil, in Iraqi Kurdistan. They had a rage or anger for them because there are many battles. Verse 8, the goat became very powerful, but at the height of his power, his large horn was broken off. In the large horn's place grew four prominent horns, pointing in the four directions of the earth. Seleucus, who ruled the north, Ptolemy, who ruled the south, Cassander, who ruled the west, and Lysimachus, who ruled the east. These are the four generals of Alexander the Great. Then from one of the prominent horns came a small horn, whose power grew very great. It extended toward the south and the east and toward the glorious land of Israel. The prominent horn is Seleucus. This horn is Antiochus Epiphanes. Antiochus Epiphanes was king of the Seleucid Empire from 175 BC until his death in 164 BC. Notable events during Antiochus' reign include his near conquest of Ptolemaic Egypt, this persecution of the Jews of Judea and Samaria, and the rebellion of the Jewish Maccabees. This is history I'm reading here. First Maccabees 1:5 through 15 in the G&T. When Alexander had been emperor for 12 years, he fell ill and realized that he was about to die. He called together his generals, noblemen who had been brought up with him since his early childhood, and he divided his empire, giving a part to each of them. After his death, the generals took control, and each had himself crowned king of his own territory. The descendants of these kings ruled for many generations and brought a great deal of misery on the world. Antiochus Epiphanes and the renegade Jews. This is still 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 10. The wicked ruler Antiochus Epiphanes, son of King Antiochus III of Syria, was a descendant of one of Alexander's generals. Antiochus Epiphanes had been a hostage in Rome before he became king of Syria in the year 137. At that time, there appeared in the land of Israel a group of traitorous Jews who had no regard for the law and who had a bad influence on many of our people. They said, "Let's come to terms with the Gentiles, for our refusal to associate with them has brought us nothing but trouble." This proposal appealed to many people, and some of them became so enthusiastic about it that they went to the king and received from him permission to follow Gentile customs. They built in Jerusalem a stadium like those in the Greek cities. They had surgery performed to hide their circumcision, abandoned the holy covenant, started associating with Gentiles, and did all sorts of other evil things. This is the beginning of Antiochus Epiphanes taking over the glorious land of Israel. Verse verse 10. Oh, we're back in we're back in Daniel, right? Daniel 8 and verse 10. The wicked ruler, oh Salaki, no we're not. Oh yeah, we are. Salaki, we are. All right, so its power reached to the heavens where it attacked the heavenly army, throwing some of the heavenly beings and some of the stars to the ground and trampling them. It even challenged the commander of heaven's army by canceling the daily sacrifices offered to him and by destroying his temple. The army of heaven was restrained from responding to this rebellion. So the daily sacrifice was halted and truth was overthrown. The horn succeeded in everything it did. The children of Israel are the stars and heavenly beings. Genesis 37, 9 and 10. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. Right? So this is Joseph telling his family that the sun, the moon, and the stars were going to praise him. I'm only bringing this up to clarify that the children of Israel can be called stars, right? And he told his father and his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother, right, the sun and the moon, and thy brethren, 11 stars, indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? So the sun and moon are Joseph's parents, and 11 stars are the 11 brothers of Joseph. Joseph is the 12th brother, right? So that's just to prove real quick that here in verse 10, where it's talking about the stars, right? The heavenly beings and some of the stars to the ground and trampling them. It's talking about the children of Israel. Now let's continue. Antiochus persecutes Jews. First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 20 to 25 in the GNT. In the year 143 after the conquest of Egypt, Antiochus marched with a great army against the land of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. In his arrogance, he entered the temple and took away the gold altar, the lampstand with all its equipment, the table for the bread offered to the Lord, the cups and bowls, the gold fire pans, the curtain and the crowns. He also stripped all the gold from the front of the temple and carried off the silver and gold and everything else of value, including all the treasures that he could find stored there. Then he took it all to his own country. He had also murdered many people and boasted arrogantly about it. There was great mourning everywhere in the land of Israel. That's the attitude of these people, boasting arrogantly, right? First Maccabees chapter 1 verses 44 through 46 in the GNT. The king also sent messengers with a decree to Jerusalem and all the towns of Judea, ordering the people to follow customs that were foreign to the country. He ordered them not to offer burnt offerings, grain offerings, or wine offerings in the temple, and commanded them to treat Sabbaths and festivals as ordinary workdays. They were even ordered to defile the temple and the holy things in it. So here we see that we're being forced to treat our holy Sabbaths and our new moons and other festivals as ordinary work days. All right, now back to Daniel chapter 8, verses 13. Then I heard two holy ones talking to each other. One of them asked, how long will the events of this vision last? How long will the rebellion that causes desecration stop the daily sacrifices? How long will the temple and heaven's army be trampled on? The other replied, it will take 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then the temple will be made right again. 2,300 days divided by 360 is 6.3889 over 6 years. The Maccabean revolt was a Jewish rebellion against the Seleucid Empire in the 2nd century BCE, primarily led by Judas Maccabees. The revolt, which took place from 167 to 160 BCE, stemmed from the defilement of the Jerusalem temple. The Maccabees successfully liberated Jerusalem and rededicated the temple, an event celebrated in the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. Right? The feast of Judas Maccabees, the festival of Judas Maccabees. Gabriel explains the vision. Daniel chapter 8, verse 15. As I, Daniel, was trying to understand the meaning of the vision, someone who looked like a man stood in front of me, and I heard a human voice calling out from the Ulai River, Gabriel, tell this man the meaning of his dream. As Gabriel approached the place where I was standing, I became so terrified that I fell with my face to the ground. Son of man, he said, you must understand that the events you have seen in your vision relate to the time of the end. While he was speaking, I fainted and lay there with my face to the ground. But Gabriel roused me with a touch and helped me to my feet. Then he said, I am here to tell you what will happen later in the time of wrath. What you have seen pertains to the very end of time. The two-horned ram represents the kings of Media and Persia. See that? So there's the two-horned ram. The Medes and the Persians. Verse 21, the shaggy male goat represents the king of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes represents the first king of the Greek Empire. Remember, Maccabees 1 and 1, I believe. It lets us know who was first over Greece, right? Here it is. Maccabees 1 and 1, first Maccabees, and it happened after that. Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius the king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So this is directly talking about Alexander, right? Verse 20 again, right here. The two-horned ram represents the kings of the Medes and Persia. The shaggy male goat represents the king of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes represents the first king of the Greek Empire. So this first king is Alexander the Great. Verse 22, the four prominent horns that replace the one large horn show that the Greek Empire will break into four kingdoms, but none as great as the first. See, Alexander the Great died, and he divided his kingdom between his four childhood friends, his four generals, right? At the end of their rule, when their sin is at its height, a fierce king, a master of intrigue, will rise to power, right? This is Antiochus Epiphanes. He will become very strong, but not by his own power. He will cause a shocking amount of destruction and succeed in everything he does. He will destroy powerful leaders and devastate the holy people. He will be a master of deception and will become arrogant. He will destroy many without warning. He will even take on the prince of princes in battle. But he will be broken, though not by human power. First Maccabees 6, 5 through 16 in the G&T. In Persia, a messenger reached him with the news that the armies he had sent into Judea had been defeated. Lysias and his strong army had been forced to flee from the Jews, who were now reinforced by the additional weapons, supplies, and loot that they had taken from the defeated armies. The Jews had pulled down the thing they called the awful horror that Antiochus had built on the altar in Jerusalem. They had also surrounded the temple with high walls, as it had been before, and had taken and fortified the town of Bethsher, one of the king's own towns. When the king heard this report, he was so dumbfounded and terribly shaken that he went to bed in a fit of deep depression because things had not turned out as he hoped. He remained ill for a long time as waves of despair swept over him until he finally realized that he was going to die. He called together all those to whom he had given the title friends of the king and said to them, I cannot sleep, and my heart is broken with grief and worry. At first, I asked myself why these great waves of trouble were sweeping over me, since I have been kind and well liked during my reign. But then I remembered the wrongs I did in Jerusalem when I took all the silver and gold objects from the temple and tried without any good reason to destroy the inhabitants of Judea. I know this is why all these terrible things have happened to me, and I am about to die in deep despair here in this foreign land. Then he called Philip, one of his most trusted advisors, and put him in charge of his whole empire. He gave him his crown, robe, and official ring, and authorized him to educate his son Antiochus V and bring him up to be king. King Antiochus died there in the year 149. Now let's get Daniel chapter 8, verse 26. The vision about the 2,300 evenings and mornings is true, but none of these things will happen for a long time, so keep this vision a secret. Then I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for several days. Afterward, I got up and performed my duties for the king, but I was greatly troubled by the vision and could not understand it. Well, there you have it. King Antiochus, right? The Roman king who took over the Grecians, right? He dies. But this is the vision of the ram and the goat, right? But let's go back here first. Chapter 8, Daniel 8 and 22. Well, let's start at 21. The shaggy male goat represents the king of Greece, right? So the ram, the two horns, is the Medes and the Persians. The goat is Greece, and the horn between his eyes is Alexander the Great. The four prominent horns that replace the one large horn show that the Greek Empire will break into four kingdoms, right? The four generals. At the end of their rule, right, they're going to be met of, by a fierce king, a master of intrigue, will rise to power. And this is the Roman Empire. This is Antiochus Epiphanes, right? So I hope somebody was edified, gained some kind of knowledge, wisdom, or understanding. With that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai. That's giving all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God, whose name is Yahweh. Ba'ashem meaning coming in the name of, and Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ. Shalom, and I love y'all.